Alright, so I'm back with another Road to 2200 game, and in this game, I think it's game 7, but I was 21-19, and my opponent was 21-19, so very evenly matched game. I had the black pieces in this one, so let's just jump right in. We had pawn to e4, pawn to c5, knight f3, d6, so we have a Sicilian defense on hand. And after d4, we have the open Sicilian. After c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3. So there are a few things that I can do here. I can go knight c6, I can go a6, I can go g6, but generally I'm a big proponent of the Najdorf Sicilian, so I play pawn to a6. The idea of this is to keep a piece out of b5, whether it's a bishop or a knight. Very useful move to make. So let's just see what white does. F3 was played. So this is kind of a trendy line, I would say. I feel like I've seen a lot more guys play this recently. And the idea is that you want to play a English attack. But you don't want to deal with the anti-English, which I actually play a lot. So it's kind of an annoying move, and it's forcing white to either go to g5 or c1 and not really get what he wants. But if you play pawn to f3 first, then you can do this on the next move. So I think this is kind of a trendy move order to get the English attack. So I go pawn to e5, knight goes back to b3, bishop to e6, bishop to e3, and bishop e7. So just developing some pieces here. White usually wants to go queen d2 and castle. So I go knight bd7 after queen d2. White castles queenside. I go pawn to b5, looking to gain space on the queen side and be as quick as possible, considering white has castled and white is ready to go g4, h4, and rush me on the king side. Importantly, I'm kind of hesitant to castle king side immediately. White goes knight d5. I think this is kind of an inaccuracy. I think white should just start rushing me or play king b1. Knight d5 seems kind of premature, so I give up my bishop. My bishop wasn't really doing anything on e6, and it's important to usually in these positions take with the bishop on d5 such that the pawn on e4 can take back. Notice the queen can't take back. Usually when the queen can take back, it's going to be good for white because this pawn is going to end up being a weakness. But when the pawn has to take back, then this weakness on d6, this backward pawn, is completely untargetable. So black's position remains very, very solid. Knight b6 is played, looking to maybe play knight c4 at some point, maybe play queen c7, maybe. It's kind of a flexible move. It also prepares to bring this knight to d7 in the event of a g4, g5 kick. Bishop takes b6 was played, queen takes b6, and knight to a5. This is a pretty good move, looking to bring the knight to c6, rook to c8, pawn to g4. And I'm not really sure why he didn't play knight to c6 right away. I think maybe he got scared of knight takes d5, but that seems a little bit hallucinated, because after knight takes d5, it just seems like white gets a pretty decent position after these trades here. So white's not going to be worse here. In the game, it was g4. I go h6, h4, and then I didn't see it on the last move, but I play knight takes d5. The engine doesn't even love it. I was kind of hesitant to play it, but knight takes d5, queen takes d5, queen takes a5, so I'm up a pawn. But it's opposite color bishops, which means the attacking side is probably favored. So the engine considers its position relatively balanced. Bishop to d3 is played, queen back to c7. I didn't really know what to do here. I thought for a long time. I had 8 minutes and 31 seconds, and I spent over 2 minutes on that move because I really didn't know what to do. I was kind of torn. Engine seems to suggest rook c5. I didn't really want to allow queen a8 check and then have to go back to d8 with either my queen or my bishop, but I ended up just going back to c7 just to target this point. Bishop to f5 was played, rook to b8, and pawn to f4. So I go pawn to g6 here. I think it's a little bit scary if I play f4 because something like either rook he1 or rook de1, it really looks kind of sketchy here. My king is not castled yet. It's probably safe, but looks a little bit dangerous for me to just take a bunch of material when my king is still in the center. I can't really castle very safely because white is ready to break open my king side. So in the game, I played g6, and white plays a pretty good move here. F takes e5. The engine calls it an inaccuracy, but it's actually the best move. And here I had initially planned to play g takes f5. Uh, and after e takes d6, just play bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, queen takes d6, rook takes d6, and f takes g4. But I wasn't exactly thrilled about this endgame. I think if anyone is pushing for a win, it might be black, but it's also very scary to have this 3-on-1 majority over here on the queen side, so I was not particularly thrilled by that. So I played g6, and after f takes e5, I took back on e5. So this allows bishop to d7 check, king f8, rook f1, but at least some pieces are still on the board, so it's not going to be as drawish, I would think. I go pawn to f6, and it seems like that was kind of a mistake. The engine wants me to play rook h7, but that is just an unbelievably passive move. I play f6, which I think is more human, and he goes queen to e6. I don't know why he didn't go g5 here. I feel like that's like the human move. After something like g5, I take and then go f5, and then he can just sack on f5. So, after something like g5, I might be in some rough shape, but he kind of makes a serious mistake here with queen to e6, which would be a very, very good move if it weren't for rook to b6, which is a fantastic defensive resource. The idea is if I do nothing here, rook takes f6 is going to be lethal. After something like this, king to g8 and queen e6 check, king f8, and the rook will slide over, and that's going to be mate coming soon. But instead, rook to b6 covers everything, believe it or not. I have a very scary looking position, but I'm still up a pawn, and rook b6 kind of covers all of the threats. Queen b3, king g7, and now pawn to g5. I take, play f5, and king b1. And now it's like the tables have turned. I've got a pretty good position, but I have a minute and 55 seconds, and I'm up a pawn, but it's not going to be easy. There's no increment. That's the problem. I have a minute and 55 seconds and no increment. Bishop takes g5, up 2 pawns. Queen g3, bishop f4. We end up shuffling a bunch here. And after rook d6, bishop g8, I did not want to fall for some sort of trap with rook h7 at some point. It doesn't work right away because I have this rook d1 move at the end, but white is going to play pawn to a3 or something like that. So I end up trading stuff, and unfortunately, after queen to f2, I kind of tossed my advantage because queen h3 is a very, very good move. I'm up 2 pawns here, but after e3, unfortunately, I allowed a perpetual. After e3, I only had 30 seconds, and unfortunately, I allowed a perpetual with queen h6, king g4, queen h3, king g5. He goes king a2 here, and I still have an opportunity to try and win with bishop g3 or queen g3, but I had 16 seconds on the clock, which I didn't think was going to be enough to convert this position with no increment. And I played e2, and the game ends in a draw. I'm pretty sure if I go to, I was too scared to go to f6, but f6 is apparently also equal, something like this. And if I go to e5, I'm actually losing because queen to e7 check is going to be lethal, king d4, and then I think my king is going to get smoked here. I lose the queen at the very least. So I was too scared to go to f6, and unfortunately the game ended in a perpetual due to my poor time management. But what better way for a game to end in a draw than a 21-19 versus a 21-19? It's a pretty even matchup, and I still thought it was a very interesting game, and I certainly would have converted this position up 2 pawns if I had more time on the clock. But 10-minute game, you got to play quickly, and my opponent was a little bit quicker on the clock than I was. So I think that's going to be all for this video, but I will see you guys in the next one, and I still have not lost a game yet since starting this series, which is good.